Okay, so what if I told you that your greatest defense against getting sick wasn't a pill or a shot, but an emotion? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating and, yeah, pretty unconventional idea that our state of mind might just be the most powerful medicine we have. And this is the question that really sits at the heart of what we're exploring. I mean, think about it. It completely challenges our normal understanding of biology and flips the script on what it even means to be vulnerable to getting sick. So let's just jump right into the most startling claim. This idea that one specific emotion, fear, actually acts like a powerful magnet for illness. According to this viewpoint, fear isn't just you reacting to a threat. It's an active force. The thinking goes that the emotion of fear literally pulls viruses towards a person, kind of like a magnet attracts a piece of metal. It's a pretty wild concept, right? But how could an emotion possibly do that? Well, to get our heads around the logic here, we have to look at the spiritual framework behind it all, which connects our physical world and the, well, metaphysical world in a very, very direct way. So here you can see these two completely different realities, side by side. On the one hand, you've got the familiar biological model of sickness that we all know. But on the other, you have this spiritual model where getting sick is actually an invasion of negative energy. And our defense is totally internal, all about our mindset. Now, the key to this whole spiritual model is a concept called Ryuho. And this is where it gets really interesting. The argument is that the process of a virus infecting your body is fundamentally the exact same process as a negative spirit possessing a person. They're said to operate on the exact same principles. Okay, so if a virus acts like some kind of invading spirit, how do we even get vulnerable to it in the first place? Well, the idea is that we basically leave the front door wide open. It all kicks off with our spiritual defenses. Intense fear, constant worry, and deep anxiety. They're said to literally create a crack or a gap in our personal energy field, our aura. And it's that gap that becomes the entry point for viruses and other negative stuff. And the source material gets super specific about who's most at risk. It's not about being physically weak, but having a weak mindset. The constant worriers, and, as you can see, especially people who are glued to scary news reports, they're seen as prime targets. So from this perspective, becoming vulnerable isn't some random accident. It's an invitation. By living in a state of fear, a person is pretty much opening their front door and welcoming in the very negative energies, including viruses, that they're so afraid of. So, if fear is what opens the door, what closes it? What locks it? The answer, according to this, is to generate an inner light. And here you see the central battle. On one side, you have these inward-facing, negative emotions that make us weak. And on the other, you have these outward-facing, positive qualities that build us up. Things like love, altruism, and just having good intentions for other people are framed as incredibly powerful spiritual defenses. I just love this analogy, thinking of yourself as a self-generating power plant. The idea is that when you act with love and you genuinely want to help others, you actively generate the spiritual light from within you. And this light isn't just passive. It forms a powerful, active barrier that actually repels negative entities and viruses.
But there's more. This inner light shield apparently has an ultimate power source, an amplifier that can make it almost unbreakable. And what is that ultimate power source? It's faith.
So in this worldview, faith isn't just some comforting belief system. No. It's a direct, functional mechanism for immunity. In fact, it's explicitly said that being distant from faith is basically the same thing as having a very weak immune system. So how does faith actually create this shield? Well, it's a three-step process, both psychologically and spiritually. First, you redefine who you are. You stop seeing yourself as just this small, fragile person, and instead you see yourself as part of something huge, an angel of light with a real purpose. Second, you embrace that mission. You believe you have a vital role to play. And finally, that mission gives you conviction, a deep, unshakable trust that a higher power will protect you until your work is done. That conviction is what generates the most powerful light.
When you step back, this whole worldview goes way beyond just fighting off a virus. It's really presented as a blueprint for an entire way of life.
And the long-term benefits that are described are pretty significant. This kind of mindset is said to lead not just to better physical health, but to a more prosperous society, because people are working for the common good. It's even suggested that having a strong sense of purpose can keep your mind sharp, maybe even delaying things like dementia.
So let's park the metaphysics of auras and evil spirits to one side for just a second. What if we look at all of this through a purely psychological lens?
In a world that so often feels just gripped by fear and anxiety, what happens to our own minds when we intentionally choose to focus on helping others? What does having a sense of purpose, a commitment to the greater good, what does that actually do for our own mental strength, our own ability to bounce back? That's the question I'll leave you with.